Hello everyone. Today I would like to present some materials in business English which is related to the English for negotiating. Before that, let me introduce myself first. My name is Komang Kristiyanti, and now let's jump into the main presentation. So the previous video has explained what the negotiation is, the types of negotiation, and also how to make a successful negotiation. Today, I would like to explain some things that are still related to the English for negotiating, which is including the first one, the opening, and concern in creating the right climate. The second one is agreeing on agenda, and the last one is opening statements, which concern in stating your position. So, negotiations are often fluid. Many people hesitate to start and are not sure even how to start a negotiation. But how you start a negotiation often will determine where you end up. So, you start your next negotiation as you mean to continue. Your end goal must be in mind at all the times and will impact whether and when you make an offer, how you counter, and also who should be the one to make the first move. So one way to open a negotiation process is making the right climate. So at the beginning of a negotiation, it is vital to establish the first one, a good relationship with the other party, and the second one is a positive climate in which the discussion takes place. So what should we do in creating the right climate in negotiation? There are some things in a checklist that should we do in order to conduct a right climate in a negotiation. The first one is welcome the visitor. The second one is greet the visitor. The third one is introduce yourself and also college. The next one is small talk, polite offers, and also the last one is get down to the business. So in life, especially in a professional life, first impression is very crucial. According to an article in Forbes magazine, we have 7 seconds to make a positive first impression. The first impression are more heavily influenced by nonverbal signs than a verbal sign. In the other words, what we do matters more than what we say. So here are the first thing that we should do in conducting the right climate in negotiation process, which is welcoming the visitors or the guests that we want to negotiate with. So some expression that can be used by the negotiator to welcome the other party in a negotiation process are on behalf of blah blah blah. I'm very glad to welcome you to blah blah blah. The second one is it's a pleasure to see you here. So there is some example to welcome your visitor or your guest that you are going to negotiate with. The next one is greet the visitor. Here are some expressions that can be used by the negotiator to greet the other party in a negotiation process. They are, for example, when you are in the first meeting with your guest or your visitor, you have to say, how do you do to greet them. And then when you are in the follow-up meeting, you can use the expression, how are you, to greet the visitor. So the next one is introduce yourself and college. So some expression that can be used by the negotiator to introduce him or herself and their college to the other party in a negotiation process are, the first one, you have to introduce yourself. You can say or mention your name by using I'm blah blah blah, like for example, I'm Lisna Kristiyanti, or my name is Lisna Kristiyanti, and also you can use please call me Lisna. So after that, you can add some additional information that the negotiator or the visitor should know about yourself. And then the second one is you have to introduce your college also. Like for example, you can use expression let me introduce you to blah blah blah, like for example the manager or the director and so on. Or you can use this is blah 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 blah. He is in charge of which department, for example. And also you can use he looks after blah blah blah. Or you can introduce your colleagues by his our blah blah blah, like director, manager, head of the department, some department, like for example like that. Or you can use cis just taken over as a head of uh, the particular department, like for example head of the human resources department and so on. So the next one is small talk. So in a negotiation, it is very important to make a small talk or conduct a small talk with our opponent, our visitor, to uh, to help us read the atmosphere of the environment we are in. When we are meeting someone influential for the first time, it helps us to test out the different things. Like for example, the visitors humors, like for example like that, etc. and etc. And also it can enabling us to understand them better and also make a more positive first impression. So here are the example of small talk expression. Like for example, how was your flight? How was your trip? Where are you staying? This isn't your first visit to blah blah blah, is it? Like for example, this isn't your first visit to Denpasar, is it? Or how was your weekend? Like that. So there are also some tips and the expression in doing small talk during the negotiation process, such as the first one is show interest. You can use expression really, or that's interesting, or yeah, I see, uh-huh, like that. And also the second one is echo interesting fact, like for example, responsible for 3,000 people born in Egypt, like that. The next one is answer question and develop answer, like for example, that's right, and blah 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 blah. Or yes, especially blah 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 blah. The next one is comment, like for example, so I suppose that you don't have a lot of the spare time. Or so you have to work abroad a lot. The next one is take turns and return question. Like for example, and you? What about you? Are you a golfer? Like that. And the last one is find common areas. Like for example, I like blah blah blah. I don't like blah blah blah. I think or you can use some expression like me too. So do I. Absolutely, I agree. Like that. So it was kind of example in small talk to make a good impression to our visitor. The next one is polite offers. So some expression that can be used by the negotiator to offer something in polite way to the other party in a negotiation process are, let me take your coats, or would you like some coffee? Or should I have a taxi come at the end of the meeting? And the last one is get down to the business. So the expression that can be used are, well, perhaps we should begin the meeting. Or as we are a little short of time, we should get started. Or we've got a very full agenda, so let's get down to the business. The next one is agreeing on agenda. So the first one is the agenda. While informal negotiation often don't require a more formal agenda, it is usually important to negotiate a procedure and agenda at the start of the meeting. Certainly, an agenda should not be imposed or assumed. As regards of chairing or controlling, this is usually done or as the responsibility of the host of the company. So here are some checklists in organizing the process of an agenda. So the first one is establish a procedure. The second one is check for agreement. The third one is state the global objective. The fourth one is introduce and agree on an agenda. The fifth one is clarify the participants and their goals. The next one is agree on length of meeting. The next one is handle any question. And the last one is move to the opening statement of position. So the first one is establish a procedure. There are some expressions that can be used to establish a procedure in an agenda. Like for example, to begin, I think we should first agree on a procedure for the negotiation. Or may I suggest that we begin by establishing a procedure for the session? The next one is we can use, I think we could begin by outlining our position. Then blah, blah, blah. You can continue by the next agenda. And then after that, we should hear your presentation. And then the last one is, then we'll have a question and answer session. Finally, blah, 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 blah. So the second one is checking for agreement or approval. You can use some expression like, for example, how does that sound? Or is that okay? Or would you agree? So the next one is state the global objectives. So the first expression is, okay, we are here today to blah, blah, blah. You can continue with the purpose of the negotiation process, or the main objective or purpose of today's meeting is blah, 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 blah. Or you can say, I'd like to start by saying a few words about the meeting today, and what we expect to achieve is blah, blah, blah. You can continue with the expectation of the negotiation process. And also the fourth one is introducing the agenda. We can use this kind of expression, like for example, we've drawn up an agenda, or let's just run through the agenda. And you can say, as you can see, there are 2 or 3 or 4 items on the agenda. And then you can say, I'd like to take blah, 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 blah first. Or we aim to deal with or cover blah, blah, blah under 3 items. And the last one is we've put blah, blah, blah last. The next one is negotiating the agenda. So here are some expressions that we can use to negotiate the agenda to the visitors. We can use, we see 3 issues, blah, blah, blah. Or can we concentrate on blah, 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 which refer to the activity or items on the agenda. We would like to look at blah, blah, blah. We would want to consider blah, blah, blah. And the last one is, may we leave that till later and continue with the next agenda, like for example, like that. And also the sixth one is clarify the participants and their roles. So the expression might be blah, blah, blah is going to sit in. So blah, blah, blah is the participant in the negotiating process is going to sit in. The next one is blah, blah, blah is going to take the minutes. The third one is blah, blah, blah would like to say a few words about blah, 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 like that. The next one is agree on length of meeting. So here are some expressions that we can use to make agreement on length of meeting. So they are, the first one, it will take 2 hours, or it won't be long, or it won't take long. I need to be away by blah, blah, blah o'clock, for example. I need to be away by 1 o'clock. That gives us 2 hours. Or you can use, I suggest that we take a break at 12, for example, like that. The last one is handle any question. So some expression that you can use to handle any question from the visitor or the guest are, the first one is, okay, are there any questions at this point? Or would you like to ask or add anything? Or you can use, if you have nothing to add, we can move on to outlining our position. like that. So here are the last subtopics, which is opening statements, which concern on setting your position. So there are two strategies in the opening statement process, which is the first one is holding back, because it is important to give yourself some room to maneuver later. So don't present your best over immediately. The second one is getting feedback. Make sure when you presenting that you check frequently that the audience follows and has an opportunity to ask questions and also the comments. So here is the checklist of opening statements in the negotiation process. The first one is background to the negotiation. The second one is company profile. The third one is link to position statement. The fourth one is inviting interruption. The next one is stating your position. The next one is invite your response. And the last one is your turn. The first one is background to the negotiation. Some expression that we can use to deliver our background to the negotiation are, the first one is things begin in blah blah blah, and we have been in contact now for blah blah blah. Or you've all seen our brochure, proposal, or offer. And also the last one is, I think you've all had a chance to read our blah blah blah, like for example, brochure, proposal, or any kind of thing like that. The next one is company profile. So here are some expressions that we can use to share or explain the company profile. The first one is, as you know, the company was established in blah, 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 like for example, in 2002, 2003, and so on. Or our main activity is blah, blah, blah. Our major market are blah, blah, blah. And also the last one is currently we blah, blah, blah. So the next one is linked to the position statement. So positions are surface statements or where a person or organization stands and rarely provide insight into underlying motivation, values, or incentive. Or it can be said that a position denotes what each party wants or think it wants from the negotiation. So here are some example of the expression in order to link to position statement. Like example, okay, let me now turn to blah, blah, blah. All right, I should move on to blah, blah, blah. So the fourth one is inviting interruption. Interruption is very needed in a negotiation process because through this interruption section, we can over the other parties to ask or add something that is still unclear. So here are some expressions that we can use to invite the other party to interrupt something. For example, the first one is, let's deal with any question immediately, or just interrupt if anything unclear, or we'll take the question at the end if that's okay with you. The next one is stating your position. So there are three positions here. The first one is general, that we can use some expression. For example, basically, we're interested in blah, blah, blah. In the long term, we would like to increase blah, blah, blah. We believe it is the time for us to develop any kind of thing like that. And the second one is focus. For example, it is essential for us to, and also the next one is blah, blah, blah is extremely important for us. Or I should stress that blah, blah, blah. So it depends on the position or the interest in your negotiation. And the last one is additional. For example, blah, blah, blah is a lower priority, or blah, blah, blah is less important at the moment. The next one is invite a response. So the expression that we can use are, for example, are there any questions at this moment? Or do you have any comments to make on that? Or you can use, would you like to clarify anything? So you as a host or the representative or a company should invite a response from the the other party or the host or the visitors that you are going to negotiate with. The last one is your turn. So in this step, we have to enable or allow or invite the other party to give their response, to add something, or to do the presentation that is related to the negotiation process. Some example of the expression that we can use are, okay, perhaps we can hear from your side now, or now I think we can move on to hear your presentation. So it is more like asking the other party to give their opinion or something to say in the negotiation process. So I think that's all that I can present of our today's material. Thank you so much for your attention, and goodbye.